Hello. Hello. I'm back. I'm going to try to get through the rest of these chapters. Quite a few. 26, maybe a little bit more than 26, but we'll see. Okay. I'll just do my best and we'll see where we're at. So, chapter 8 and 9 right now on this recording, both short chapters. Chapter 8, no one is safe. If you remember, they just got a letter tacked to their door. So, my father replied to the Taliban the next day in a letter to the newspaper. Please don't harm my school children, he wrote, because the God you believe in is the same God they pray to every day. You can take my life, but please don't kill my school children. His letter appeared in the paper along with his full name and the address of our school, even though my father had written only his name. Our phone started ringing that night. Friends called to thank my father for speaking up. You have put the first stone in standing water, one said. How many will have the courage to speak up? So, what does that mean to put the first stone in standing water? Think about that. Think about the ripples and the ripple effect. Okay, my father had always been a busy man, participating in mushaira, poetry contests or concerts, working late at school, helping neighbors settle disputes. But now, when he left home, I felt like the little 3-year-old I once was when he would climb down the ladder at school to fix the well. I wondered each night if he would come back. After the letter arrived, my father made a decision. The boys at the Kashul school would no longer wear the uniform of shirt and trousers. These supposedly Western clothes marked them as identifying with infidels in the eyes of Fazlullah's followers. So for their safety, he had the boys switch to the traditional tunic and pants of the shalwar kameez. I shall I still wore my blue and white shalwar kameez, but the Taliban said girls should not wear the white shalwar. The uniform I once loved now made me feel like a criminal. Suddenly, everywhere I looked, the Taliban seemed to sprout like weeds. Now, if you want to know what a shalwar kameez is, I have no idea, but you can Google it, and I bet you they'll let you know. Then I thought, what have I done wrong that I should be afraid? All I want to do is go to school, and that is not a crime. That is my right. Besides, I was a daughter of Ziauddin Yosef Yousafzai, the man who had dared to talk back to the Taliban. I will hold my head high, even if my heart was quaking. That fall in October 2007, something happened that gave us hope. Benazir Bhutto, who had been the first female prime minister of Pakistan, was returning to run in the year's elections. And Benazir Bhutto, you should look her up, really a great politician for Pakistan. She had been living in exile in the United Kingdom since I was 2 years old, but I had been hearing about her for years. As a woman, she was a role model for girls like me, and she was the only politician who'd had the courage to speak out against the terrorists. Our whole family was glued to the TV when her arrival was broadcast. We watched her weep as she stepped onto Pakistani soil for the first time in almost 9 years. My mother was moved by this, but was also afraid for her. She said to the TV, "Did you come for death?" Everyone knew it was dangerous for her to return, but we hoped for her safety. Not long after that, just over 2 months later, she was dead. It happened right in front of my eyes as I again watched her on TV. We will defeat the forces of extremism and militancy with the power of the people, she declared. Then she stood on the seat of her bulletproof vehicle to wave to her supporters. There was a crack of gunfire and the roar of an explosion. I watched breathless as she sank down inside the car. My mother, my father, and my grandmother burst into tears. Benazir Bhutto was the first woman attacked by the terrorists. Despite the fear we all felt for her, we were not expecting them to attack a woman. The killing of a woman is prohibited by the Pushtunwali Code. We were shocked. I found myself oddly still. My first thought was this: if Benazir Bhutto can die, no one is safe. Not the women who were forbidden to walk the streets of their own towns, not the men who were being flogged to death for petty reasons, not the children who woke in the trash heaps, not even the children like me who just wanted to go to school. As I looked at the TV, a tiny voice in my head, in my heart, whispered to me, "Why don't you go there and fight for women's rights? Fight to make Pakistan a better place." I had recently done interviews with the TV news channels, Dawn and Khyber News, about girls' educations, and although I had been nervous, I had made it through, and I liked it. As everyone around me cried, I kept my secret. I told myself I will continue this journey of fighting for peace and democracy in my country. I was only 10, but I knew then that somehow I would find a way. Candy from the sky. Reminds me of the candy bomber, huh? One day in the autumn of 2007, we were sitting in class when we heard a fearsome roaring from outside. Everyone, students and teachers, ran out to the courtyard and looked up. A swarm of giant black army helicopters darkened the sky overhead. They whipped the wind around us and stirred up a storm of dirt and sand. We cupped our hands over our ears and tried to yell at one another, but our voices were drowned in the din. Then there was a plunk as something landed on the ground at our feet. Plunk, plunk, plunk. We screamed and then we cheered. Toffees! The soldiers were tossing candy down to us. We laughed our heads off as we went scrambling to catch toffees. We were so delighted that it took us a minute to understand what was going on. The army had come to rescue SWAT from Fazula. We cheered and clapped and jumped up and down. Candy was falling from the sky and peace would be coming to SWAT. Soon, soldiers were everywhere. Helicopters were even parked on the Mingora golf course. It was strange to see the army and SWAT. We'd been praying for someone to stand up to Fazula and his men with their black turbans and Kalashnikov rifles. But now our town was swarming with men in green uniforms and Kalashnikov rifles. Practically overnight, Fazula's men disappeared like snow melting into the ground. But although we could not see them anymore, we knew they had not gone far. Only a few kilometers away, and Mingora remained a tense and frightened city. Each day after school, my brothers and I would race home and lock the doors. No more playing cricket in the alley, no more hide and seek in the street, no more candy from the sky. One evening we heard an announcement from the loudspeakers atop the mosque. The army had imposed a curfew. We didn't know this word curfew, so I knocked on the wall to Safina's house so someone next door would come to the hole in the wall and explain. Soon Safina and her mother and brother came to our house and told us it meant we had to stay indoors for certain hours of the day and always at night. My brothers and I were so scared we didn't even come out of our rooms. We stayed inside and peered through the curtains at the empty street in front of our house. That night, a streak of bright white light flashed across the sky, lighting the room for a second, like a flashbulb on a camera. Boom! A thud shook the ground. I jumped up. I jumped out of bed and ran to my parents. Kushal and Atal came running to join us. We all huddled together, shaking. The dishes clattered and the furniture shook and the windows rattled. Then within minutes, the army's gunfire began in the outskirts of the city. With each blast and shot, we gripped one another harder until we drifted off to sleep. The next morning, we woke up as if we were coming out of a long, fitful dream. After a night full of bombing, the air seemed oddly still. We dared to hope. Was it possible that the army had defeated the Taliban? We peeked out the gate and saw knots of people from the neighborhood gossiping. My father went out to find out what had happened. He came back inside frowning. The rumor on the street? The Taliban were going to take control of Swat. The military operation was ineffective. Our hearts sank. The army sent 10,000 more men, and the fighting raged on and on, night after night for a year and a half. I was always the first to run to our parents, and my brothers quickly followed. And since the bed was now too crowded, I had to sleep on a pile of blankets on the floor. Even in the middle of the war, I was able to be irritated with those two for stealing my spot. Strange as it sounds, we got used to the bombing and shelling. Sometimes Atal slept through it, and Kushul and I came up with a system to figure out where the fighting was. If the fighting was nearby, the electricity went out. If it was farther away, the power stayed on. There were 3 types of attacks, and we learned to distinguish them. Bombing was done only by the Taliban, sometimes by remote control, but other times by suicide bombers. Shelling from helicopters and cannons fired from mountaintops was the army. The 3rd type, machine guns, was used by both. I used to get afraid at night, especially during bomb blasts. From my spot on the floor in my parents' room, I recited a special verse from the Holy Quran, the Ayat al-Kursi. Say it 3 times and your home will be safe from devils and any kind of danger. Say it 5 times and your neighborhood is safe. Say it 7 times and your whole town is safe. I said it 7, 8, 9 times. So many times I lost track. Then I spoke to God. Bless us and protect us, I'd say. Bless our father and family. Then I'd correct myself. No, bless our street. No, our neighborhood. Bless all of Swat. Then I'd say, no, bless all of Pakistan. No, not just Pakistan. Bless all the world. I tried to plug my ears and picture my prayers floating up to God. Somehow, each morning, we woke safe and sound. I didn't know the fate of all the people I'd prayed for, but I wished for peace for everyone, and especially peace for Swat. One day, my prayer was answered. The army hadn't won, but it had at least driven the Taliban into hiding, if not away. And chapter 10. Somehow, daily life continued despite the bomb blasts and killings. School remained a haven for the insanity of a city in the middle of a war. It wasn't always possible to attend between the bomb blasts and the curfew, which would be enforced any time of day, and sometimes noisy helicopters flying overhead made it so we couldn't hear a thing. Sorry. And on those days, we would be sent home. But if the school opened its doors, I was there ready to spend time with my friends and learn from the teachers. My friends and I had now moved to the upper school, and our friendly competition got even more competitive. We didn't just want to get good grades, we wanted to get top grades. It wasn't just that we wanted to be the best, although we each enjoyed it when we were. It was because when our teachers like Miss Ulfat in primary school said excellent or well done, our hearts would fly. Because when a teacher appreciates you, you think, I am something. In a society where people believe girls are weak and not capable of anything except cooking and cleaning, you think, I have a talent. When a teacher tells you that all great leaders, scientists were once children, too, you think, maybe we can be the great ones tomorrow. In a country where so many people consider it a waste to send girls to school, it is a teacher who helps you believe in your dreams. And I had found a great new teacher in our upper school, mistress, Madam Miriam. She was bright and independent, everything I wanted to be. She had been to college. She had a job earning her own wage. Now that we were in upper school, the subjects became more difficult. We took algebra, chemistry, and my favorite, physics. And even though our teachers had only a blackboard and chalk, we were free to go as far as our curiosity would take us. When we were learning about chemistry, one girl stopped the class to ask a question. If everything is made up of atoms, what are atoms made of? Another asked, if electrons are constantly moving, why isn't this chair I'm sitting on moving? The teacher put aside the day's lesson plan and we all asked questions to our heart's content. But mostly what we talked about these days was the army and the Taliban. All the people of SWAT were caught in. We're caught in the middle. One friend used to like to annoy me by saying, Taliban is good, army not good. And I would always reply, when you're caught between military and militants, there is no good. The trips from school had become tense and frightening, and I just wanted to relax once. I was safe inside my home. One day I arrived ahead of my brothers, thrilled that I didn't have to fight with Kushal for the remote for once. And settled in to watch my new favorite show, chp8to10, which means making mischief. It was just a Bollywood comedy, but I loved it. I turned on the TV and all I got was static. I switched stations. More static. I tried every station. Nothing but static. At first I thought it was another annoying power outage. We'd been given them every day. But that night we found out that Fazula's men had switched off all the cable channels. They said that TV was haram. It showed the westernized world where women have love affairs and do not cover their hair. With nothing left to watch but the official government television channel, we were all but cut off from the outside world. I'm going to pause a second. I'll be right back.